This is Jen Grice from jengrice.com, and I am a Christian divorce mentor and coach, encouraging and empowering Christian women to survive and thrive after divorce. You can find out more about me at jengrice.com. And today I have with me Christina Lynn. She is a financial expert, and I will let her explain what she does and why she does it.
Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really happy to be here talking about these things that we both love and can change lives. So I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. That's how I reached out to you, and I think that I can, help your audience with some of these things that are pretty puzzling when they go through a divorce. And I also help with just traditional finances as well, like retirement planning.
So today, as Christina said, we're talking about financially surviving divorce. And we have a few topics we're going to cover today. So we're going to start off the topics with budgeting and savings, which is an important topic after divorce, because women after divorce experience a 41% cut in their income. And so when you're starting off on a very low income, you have to budget, use the resources you have and budget wisely and learn to save. So what advice do you have for women who are going through divorce or been through divorce as how they should budget and learn to save?
Let's start with a quick story about where I came from and why this budgeting piece is so important to me. When I got a divorce, I left with my purse and my kids, and I didn't go back. And I only had our joint bank account, which was closed immediately. So I was really in a pickle. And if I didn't have my parents, who took us in, I would have been in serious trouble. So thank goodness for good family. But this is where the budgeting piece was so important. It was just harsh financial reality that your finances change so much after divorce. Maybe not everybody is as serious as that, where you actually have no money until temporary support comes in. But more than likely, you are going to experience a big financial shift. And the key is to take it in stride and to accept your new reality, to take power over that, and find a way to make it work in your new chapter of life. And the way to do that, at least in the start, is through budgeting. So if you don't have a budget already, it's time to create one. And I learned to do that through Financial Peace University. I signed up at a course at my local church, and that was really helpful. And we'll just go over some of the basics of that program. So if you don't already have a budget, you need to create one. And the biggest thing I hear from my clients as feedback is excuses. They have excuses of why that won't work for them. They say that they're not good with finances, that their spouse ran all of the money, and so they don't even know where to start. And so basically, they just have poor attitudes, and I don't want that to be you. It's really important to look at this budgeting not as a chore, but as a tool that's going to change your life for the better, because it can really be a powerful thing. So first of all, just attitude check. Don't go into the budgeting with having a bad attitude. Look at it as something that can really empower you to have great financial success in this new chapter of life for you. So just in general with the budgeting, you want to look at your previous expenses and start categorizing them. I find it to be easier to do if you actually print it out, so you have it on paper, like your old credit card statements or old bank statements, and take a look at where you're spending your money, and you put those into categories. And then you add them up. You want to take averages because some months you might spend more on things than other months. So to just get kind of a rough idea for where your money is going, you want to that's the most important thing, is you just want to be aware of where your money is outflowing to. You don't want it to be some mystery, which may sound kind of funny, but that's where I was. I was totally blind to where my money was going prior to that. So it was pretty scary to take a look at my statements and figure out how to move forward, but you can totally do it. And then just in general, you want to make sure that your income is more than your expenses. And I know that that sounds so silly, but it's going to be so tempting for you to continue the lifestyle that you had in marriage. And at least in this first transitional period, it can't be like that, or most likely cannot be like that. Maybe in your case it's different, but most of us have to make huge financial adjustments. And so make sure that you're spending less than what you're bringing in. That might require beans and rice, and it's okay to feed your children beans and rice. I have done that for multiple days of the week, but just until you get that under control, so that you're not developing a habit of putting money on the credit card because you can't make ends meet. Now, disclosure, you may not be able to do this. Like me, when I first left, I literally had no money, and I had one credit card with a $500 limit that I had to use because I didn't have any money to feed my children. And so there might be, specific situations where it might require that you live on credit temporarily. But the goal is to not make that your habit in this new chapter of life. So those are my high level budgeting tips for you.
Those are some great tips. Yeah, and I can totally relate. I share on my blog, and I will link everything below, how to reach Christina, how to get to my blog, and any articles that have been written together and about this topic. I didn't have a lot of income when I first started out as well, and it was hard to kind of decide which were important and which were not. And I share also that I would always get frazzled when the bills that would come up every 3 months or every 6 months, and then or once a year, and I knew they were coming. We all know Christmas is the same day every year, or that car insurance is due, or whatever else it was. But to sit down and actually be realistic to say, I need to take that bill and divide it by how many months I have until it needs to be paid, was a struggle, And like you said, I hear a lot of, I can't, I don't know how. And it is hard. You and I have both been there, but to actually sit down and be realistic and say, all right, I can do this. I can financially survive divorce. These two women have made it through, and they've shared their experience, and we, put on our boots and we got to work and did what we need to do to survive. So I hope we're encouraging you today with our stories and these, this advice and resources to help get you there as well.
I don't want people to think, oh, I'm going to be condemned to a life of beans and rice for the rest of my life, because that's not the case. What I want to inspire you with is to go through this transitional period after divorce and really be conscious of your spending habits, because it's going to take some effort to make new habits in your new life. But if you do that hard work, you can totally master it, and you will you can become a foodie before long. It's just during this transition period that you're going to I am suggesting to be frugal and really watching your pennies. And then the last thing that I'm going to follow up with is totally remove the phrase "I can't" from your vocabulary. That's not an acceptable phrase for you right now. I'm forbidding you from saying it, because if you have the mindset that you can master this, you can.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And when I was going through my divorce in the very, very early stages, when I was separated and my husband and I still lived in the same home, I packed up my kids at 6 o'clock in the morning and went and stood in the food line for free groceries. And we did get rice and beans, and you learn how to cook with those things. But you know what we want to instill today is that you can get past that. Just because you start there doesn't mean you're going to remain there. And like you said, you have I can do this. Christina and Jen did this, and it will get better. I actually buy rice now because we like rice so much,
Me too.
Not so much the beans. We gave that up, but rice is something that we just love making. And I got a new rice cooker to make it in the microwave, and we love it. So, you just learn from this experience, and there's gains from this. And that's what I tell my clients when I talk to them, is that there are gains. Yes, there's losses, but there's also gains too. What ideas do you have for, women returning to work or increasing their income? And feel free to share your story.
Yeah, I have so many ideas on this topic, so I'll try to rein it in. But I mean, my history here is I was a stay-at-home mom, just like you. I was 6 years stay-at-home mom, which basically means like 30 years in terms of trying to get a new job, because that resume gap just kills you. However, you have to remove the I can't from your vocabulary. So I do have some suggestions on how to get started increasing your income, because we do want to raise up that gap. So kind of bridging the conversation from the budget piece. As much as I love budgeting and how important I think it is, especially in that transition period, I want you to slowly shift your focus from the budgeting to the increasing your income train of thought, that path, because I think that you have so much potential, and a lot of people are just limiting themselves because they're in old kind of restrictive mindsets. So I want to encourage you that you are totally capable of making a lot of money. So the first thing is if you currently have a job, evaluate your career options there at your work. If you don't have a job right now, it might be time to research what jobs do pay well, or more importantly, start researching and talking to people avidly about what jobs do not pay well. Because, for example, I had a client who got divorced, and she had her heart set on going back to school to become an architectural assistant, design assistant, something like that. She just thought that would be a really great career for her in this like later in life chapter. And while she did incredibly well at school, when she graduated, there was no work for her. And so she spent all this money, all this time, and there was nothing to show for it. So if you are going to pursue the route of going back and getting some sort of like certificate, degree, make sure that you're not going into like a pipe dream. And I don't mean to, burst anyone's bubbles with that, but like we were talking about with the budgeting, right now it's really time to be conservative with your money, and you want to really maximize your resources. So find the things that are paying a lot of money and consider that. Of course, I want you to pursue the desires of your heart. Like Jen, you're obviously really good at writing, and you found a way to make that work for you. And I found what I'm good at to make work for me. But I think it's just keeping that in mind. Don't pursue something that there is no demand for, or you're going to be making really, piddly pay for.
Wouldn't you suggest then looking up jobs? Like look on job, websites like Indeed and those kind of things, and look up the available jobs for the area that interests you. Yeah, and absolutely. Then see what's available.
Another good resource for you is like the tech schools nearby. We have a couple of them around here, and it's not for everybody, but it's still good research for you to do. Call those like the admin offices up and ask them what kind of degrees that they have, where their job placement is at, what kind of like salaries the kids are making coming out of those. There is one particular tech school in my area that there's like 95% job placement for, and the minimum starting salary for these jobs is like over 60,000. So it's like, there are the right things out there for you. It may not be the right field for you, but do some research like that, so that you're just efficient with your talents and your resources. All right. And then another way to increase your income is to gain a new skill. I want to give the example of just something that I stumbled across because of what I do is creating YouTube videos for the company that you work at. You can make them like educational for their industry, or like product demos, or interview customers, things like that. I have found that like just the skills that I have developed in creating YouTube videos, other companies like don't know how to do that, and they're interested in my skills. I haven't pursued that because I'm focusing on my own path, but that's just an example of that's like an easy thing to learn by kind of like doodling around, and people will pay for that. So lots of other ideas on like new skills like that are really marketable and will pay, and you can do it from home, which, you know, I think a lot of you out there, that probably sounds pretty appealing. Now, if you are in a job and you don't see there's room for improvement, you are kind of at a glass ceiling, or you're in a negative environment, I would encourage you to switch jobs, even though, you know, I'm sure that you really value kind of stability right now in your life. At the same time, I don't want you to be in a place that doesn't allow you to blossom. And especially if you're around a really negative cohort of people, that's not to say that that can't change or you can't hide from that. But with, you know, what we're trying to teach you is to change your mindset to be positive and a can-do mindset. And it's hard to do that if you're, you know, just being bombarded with negativity and bad juju. Another idea is to develop a side hustle. And just an example of that is the YouTube skill that like I personally have stumbled across. If you don't do that for your own company, you could go do that for other companies, or for, you know, other prominent figures in your area. Just reach out to them. And if they're not willing to pay you upfront, offer to do it for free. Then get some experience under your belt, and then you can charge later. Like, gain that confidence, gain the resume building experience. And I really do think that those things will come back to really financially benefit you in the end. And so a lot of you may be like stay-at-home moms or have like really restricted schedules because, oh, like a lot of my clients have, their kids have, you know, certain things going on in their life where they just like, they can't go to daycare, or they can't, they need their mom home most of the day. And so you're restricted. Don't let that be an excuse, but find other things that you can do. Like, you know, like you mentioned the social media campaigns before, or the YouTubing, or you can even do pet sitting, whatever. It doesn't need to involve a lot of skill. Just be creative and find some sort of side hustle that you can bring in some cold hard cash, so that you can generate some extra income. And then two more things for you. One is ask for a raise at your job. A lot of us struggle with a lack of confidence, and we think, oh, well, we're just going to work really hard and do our job well, and then our bosses will see that and reward us for it. Well, the harsh reality is that doesn't always happen. And so, you know, work at building that confidence up, maybe even role play with somebody else to, you know, work the kinks out. But ask for what you deserve in your workplace. And then lastly, don't be too humble to start at the bottom of the totem pole. For my personal history here, I had to start at an entry-level position on a sales floor, and it was totally humbling. Like, I sat by a meth head and like a 41-year-old that played, I think, video games most of the day. Like, it was totally humbling. I am educated, I'm smart, and here I am, like, at the bottom of the totem pole. But you work your way up, you prove your worth, or if they're not willing to recognize it, you save up your pennies so that you can change to something else and kind of leapfrog. But I guarantee you that starting from the bottom of the totem pole is not going to last forever. You just need to, like, get your foot in the door and start climbing from there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I had gone to school but did not finish.
Okay.
Because, it was just always a burden for me to go to school as a stay-at-home mom. And so a couple years after I got divorced, I decided to go back and finish. And I was the oldest person in the class with, a bunch of 20-year-olds and some young, a little older, but I was the oldest, the one with teenagers and that kind of thing. And actually my teacher was my age. And had kids my age. So it felt very, hard to be there. It felt like I was out of place and I should have already accomplished these things. But then I realized, I was busy at home taking care of kids, and that was an accomplishment in itself. Mm-hmm. And that needed to happen at that time. And so I just, like you said, it's humbling. I just said, I need to finish this for me. I'm not going to worry about these 20-something kids in my class that are, just starting out their lives. And I finished, got my degree and am better for it. Yes. Thank you. And so, it is hard. And some people are older, I didn't have any older people in my class, like I said, being the oldest, but there are women that go back in their 50s and 60s and get their degree. So, and I'm not saying that's the route you have to take, but find the route that you need to take. If the job that you want requires a degree, then definitely go get that degree. I'm curious how you feel about like multi-level marketing companies or direct sales, or there's all different names for those kind of companies where you sell things out of your home. You work from home and you sell things. I'll just tell you real quick is that like I said, I sold books. When I researched getting more income, I decided to look around at the different companies and what they had to offer, how they worked and how much commission I would make. And I also picked a company that I wasn't going to want to buy stuff. I'd been around enough, done Tupperware, had done Avon in my early 20s. I haven't worked outside the home since 2002, if that tells you. So it's been a while. And so I did these companies I did my research for my, extra income or side hustle and really researched it, like I said, and decided, I would go with selling books because I had a teenager or almost teenager, and I knew I wouldn't be spending the money that I was earning to buy more product. And that actually worked out for me that way. I'm just curious what your suggestions are or any ideas you have or advice on this topic.
So I'm not involved in any. I did try to, and it didn't work for me, but I do have two things I'd share. One, I think it can work. I have a dear friend who, she is a graphic designer, and she's about ready to quit her job because the income she sells this special type of coffee, like with reishi mushroom in it. Super interesting and good product. And so it does work, is my point. The second thing I will say is that find something that, because it requires so much sales. You're like the multi-level marketing, you're basically going to your friends and family. So you want to have a product that you're really proud of and believe in. And this, the sales tip for you is look at it not is that you're selling, but that you're helping people. And if you can't truly believe that you're helping people with what you're bringing to them, it probably is not going to work, or you might lose a bunch of family and friends over the deal. So yeah, that's what I would say. I absolutely think that that it can work, and that's probably a really good outlet for some people.
Great. Yeah, I just was curious on your tips. So we're going to move on to other financial tips.
Yeah. So I want to get into like the nitty gritty of financial tips. It's actually not that nitty gritty. I'll keep it pretty high level because so much of it needs to be customized to your own situation. But again, I came to this point not because I was born with this information or like natural tendencies, but I got divorced having been married and totally blind to what was going on. Like I did not know, until the point of when I had gotten married and handled my own finances, I was flying blind. And so this was a tough transition for me to relearn these techniques and really master them. And I would say now that I have done that, I'm also, I'm finishing up a master's degree in financial planning. So I do feel qualified to share these tips with you. But I also just want to say that, none of us are born with these things. Even the most successful person that you meet in your life, they got this successful by learning these strategies and implementing them like one baby step at a time. So just to encourage you. But so the first basic principle is to build an emergency fund. Typically they say 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So that means once you do your budget, if your budget, let's say for simple purposes, is $1,000 a month, you want to save $3,000 to $6,000 in like a savings account under your bed, wherever, but like in a place where you're not going to spend it on fast food and shoes and vacation. You want it to be kind of off limits. But what you want to use that for is for when situations arise that makes you tempted to go to your credit card. I want to get you away from going to the credit card. So for example, in my life, it would be things like my daughter had this vision therapy thing pop up that I totally had not budgeted for. So that would, in that case, rather than putting it on a credit card because it's out of my normal budget, go to my emergency fund, pay that in cash because you get a discount when you pay in cash and you don't finance. And then I work to replenish that emergency fund. So that's how an emergency fund works, is that you leave it till you need it, and then you take it out when you need it, and then you work at refunding it. So it's kind of always there. It's not like it just slowly depletes into nothing. You want it to be this healthy resource that you have when the going gets tough. And then from there, you want to start saving. So like we talked about, you're in this kind of vulnerable transition period after divorce where money is really tight. It's not like you might be living on a credit card right now or standing in line to get free groceries. Totally get it. For me, it was mommy and daddy helping me out by borrowing me grocery money. So I understand that this is not going to be an immediate transition, but you also want to have it as your goal that you want to shoot for. And because I don't want you to be going through this tough transition period forever. This is just the temporary valley. And where you want to get you out of it is you need to start saving money. I think that a lot of people in general have kind of gotten away from, being really diligent with saving and more living paycheck to paycheck. But when you do that, you do maybe accumulate some assets in the back through your home, through kind of building equity in your home. Maybe you're putting money towards retirement accounts, but you're not going to really make a quantum leap by operating in that paycheck to paycheck manner. You're going to want to set aside, like, just again, a general rule of thumb number, 10 to 15% of your income. Again, don't be scared, because I know that this is not possible for you up front, but it's something that you want to shoot for, because you start getting to the point where you want to fall in love with this savings idea, because this really is going to put you into a different, tax bracket, if you will. Like, this is the way you're going to level up, is by getting used to saving money. Part of that savings, you're going to want to start putting towards a retirement account. I can't get into too many details here, because so much of this is customized according to your personal situation. You can have the money be pre-tax, so that you're paying money on the paying taxes on the funds as you draw them out in retirement, or the opposite. You could be paying money before you put it into the retirement account, so you draw them out tax-free. There's pros and cons to each, depending on your situation. Talk to me if you want some more information about that. But the important thing is to find the right retirement account for you, and start contributing to that. And why do I say retirement account? Because it grows tax deferred, so you're not paying taxes on that every year, which just really helps with things, especially at this stage in life. Another tried and true financial planning tip is to diversify your money. You don't want to have your marital home be your only financial asset, which, unfortunately I see a lot of. You want to diversify, have some money in different places. And then even within that place, maybe don't put all of your money into the same sort of fund, but you want to, instead of buying the needle in the haystack, you want to buy the haystack. So that means when one of those areas that you're in with your finances takes a dip in the market or goes through a recession, you have all of these other areas that are kind of, evening out the madness. And so then throughout your life, those different areas are all going to kind of go through the times of highs and lows. But when you have a diversified portfolio, I don't want to get too complicated, but that's a fun word. Then you are much safer, because you're spread out across such a wide platform that you're not going to have all your eggs in that one basket that takes a dive. So diversification is really a beautiful thing. Another thing to think about is life insurance. And I say this because, you probably lost your life insurance policy that you had while you were married. Like, you're probably no longer the beneficiary of that account, or maybe it was a group policy on at your spouse's job that you no longer have access to. And why this is important is because you don't want to leave a huge burden to your family if something were to happen to you. So you want to have enough life insurance to cover you in case the worst case scenario happens. Cover your debts, cover your funeral, which, could be between $7,000 and $20,000. Not to scare you, but life insurance is cheap. You can afford a lot of life insurance for a little amount of money. But the most important part is now that you're on your own, you need to wear the financial pants of the family and be responsible for these types of things now. So you just want to make sure that your kids are taken care of, or your family, so you don't leave them in a bind. And again, like I said, it's cheap, as long as you're, relatively healthy. You can get this at a very inexpensive cost. Another great financial planning tip is to make sure that you keep your debt at a manageable level. So this is actually a really convenient time to talk about this, because you just had a complete upheaval with your finances. So you might be really reassessing the kinds of loans and assets that you have right now anyway. But moving forward, you want to be really cognizant of the amount of debt that you have, because kind of like what I was saying about the savings can be the element that makes you level up, the amount of debt can be the element that really like restrains you and restricts you and keeps you back in the same kind of operating at the same financial struggle level that you might be right now. And so it's a customized number. I can't say like this is what you should have. A typical like ratio that I would use for you is like a debt to income ratio that you can determine, but you want to keep that manageable. A good indicator, if your debt is too high, you're probably really like stressed out about making your loan payments every month. That's just like a rough indicator that you have too much debt. So you might need to go through some kind of difficult financial decisions to learn how to reassess, readjust. But I guarantee you that your life will be so much better if you just commit to doing that, even if it requires a lower quality, like a cheaper car or a smaller house, or, getting rid of the boat or RV, like those types of things, because you can have all of those things. It just might not be right now. It might be in 5 years.
And wouldn't you say that you appreciate things more? Maybe, like you said, this is a time and everything is an upheaval, and it's a good time to reassess everything, and what you have and what you actually need. You may have a lot of things that you are used to, your lifestyle that you're used to, but deciding that, hey, I want to, downgrade a little bit. You learn to kind of appreciate what you have. And I share on my blog my personal story of, we had a house when I was married, and then we moved, we had a certain lifestyle, and, we had newer vehicles, and really going through the divorce helped me to say, you know what, I'd rather have a paid off vehicle than a brand new vehicle. And I share how recently I sold a lot of my stuff. We had rented a house because we sold our marital home, and I rented a house with my kids, and it was actually too big. My older children had moved out, and it was getting too big, and I sold everything: the lawnmower, the washer dryer, the microwave, furniture, down to where it only took us like a couple hours to move everything out. There was so little left. Mm-hmm. But now I have a more fulfilling life. I live in an apartment, which I love. I don't have to, when it snowed last week, I didn't have to go out one time and shovel or put down salt or anything, or bug my son to do it, or mow, or all those things. And I found that relieves, for some people, that relieves a lot of stress off your shoulders. And you may think, I need all those things. I need the big house. I need the yard and the pool and stuff. And when I coach my clients and I tell, do you really need that? Or is it a want? Or is it, keeping up with the lifestyle that you had? And you might have a more thriving life if you were to give up some of those things that you need and then realize just what it is that you really need in life.
I went from when I was married to, I had a brand new Audi Q7, like this super fancy car. Then when I left, I had to borrow my parents' like 14-year-old Subaru. And then I borrowed my aunt's like old convertible. And then finally I bought my own 2006 Ford Focus. And then now I bought a new Prius, and my next step will be a nicer car. So that just kind of illustrates like, okay, well, you kind of have a really bad setback, but you pick up the pieces and you can get right back to where you were or better.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great story. Yes. And totally. I'm sure many women can relate. I can relate to that. Yeah. And then I think that illustrates the idea that, you might have to take some steps backwards, to survive, but the goal is thriving. And if you keep your eye on that goal, you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I'm going to finish this out with, really being aware of your budget in terms of any support that you're receiving. So if you're receiving spousal support or child support, come up with a plan now to save the extra amount that you need so that when that support ends, you're not left like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because what I don't want for you is to be panicked at that point or feel like you need to remarry someone just because you can't survive on your own. I do not want that for you. If you end up falling in love and getting remarried, that is what I want for you, but I don't want it to be out of necessity, financial necessity. And so the way you do that is you have to be proactive and plan ahead for when that support will end.
Great. Yes, I totally agree with that. You want to do things that are in your best interest and your kids' best interest and not out of necessity or feeling desperate. Yes, I totally agree. And I get that a lot from women who come to coach with me and they'll say, child support's going to run out this year. I have a 17-year-old and it's going to run out. And it's like, yeah, you should have been planning for it. And I there's no judgment, because we all can do it. It's just a matter of now it's like dire. And that's, you don't want to be in that situation. So if you're just starting out and you have little kids, you should still be planning for, even if something were to happen a year from now, even if you have little kids, that child support, you can't always count on it. It could stop, it could run out, something, tragic could happen and there is none. So you definitely want to plan for any future things that could happen.
Quick follow-up on that. You can actually insure that as well. I won't get into the details, but if you have questions, just let me know. But you can insure something like were to happen to your spouse that before the payments were supposed to end, you can insure that. So
yes, that's great. And we're talking about life insurance earlier too. Sometimes if you're in the very, very early stages of divorce and you haven't finalized anything, you can actually add, and this is what we did, was that the life insurance would continue for both parties and the beneficiaries would stay the same until the child's 18. So, God forbid something to happen to either party, then the other party is covered with that life insurance policy. So those are all different other ideas too. So definitely Christina's stuff will be in the links below and you can contact her and talk to her about all this stuff. So we're going to talk about credit, protecting and repairing your credit. So what do you have for us about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you 2 tips on this because this is important. The first one is pretty basic, but hardly anybody does it, and it's to run your credit report. You need to know what's on there, and you need to know what's inaccurate or old now that you're divorced, and you need to fix it. I'll just give you a quick story on this. I had a client that I helped her run her credit report and take a look because she was going to purchase a home and was like, I have terrible credit. I don't know why. And she found that she has about $20,000 of student loans in default because her ex-husband never paid off the loans that she had thought. There was just a miscommunication apparently. But now, in addition to those loans, she has interest and penalties and a horrible credit score. Maybe it won't be that bad, but there can be some doozies in the credit report. So it's so important that you look at that, and it's free to run once a year. Good.
The free credit report. I'll add a link to that below.
Good. Yes. And then the final tip. There's so many, but it's getting so long. So it's to aim at using 30% of your available credit limit. And again, you'll see that on your credit report, what that is. And just another quick story. I have another client that she knew she had a bad credit score, but didn't really understand like how to fix it. And it turns out that she was using over 100% of her credit limit because she kept like paying the minimum payments, then putting more money on the credit cards, or even charging a little bit more. So she was at like 103% of her credit limit. And she was very diligent in making the payments. But I actually ran the numbers for her. And if she continued doing that and only paying the minimum payments, this was scary. She literally would never pay it off in her lifetime. And so you never know that because the bill doesn't look that big on paper, but that's such a terrible cycle to be in. So do your best to keep your spending within 30% of your credit limit. Lots more that we can talk about, but I'll wrap it up there for you, Jen.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And again, that if somebody has more questions on, specific on saving or budgeting or credit or any of those things, they can contact you at your website and the links below. And you offer a free consultation?
Yep, I offer free consultations. I also do like analysis of all this stuff that we've been talking about to help you out. So I'm just passionate about you guys embracing this new stage of life and really finding financial success as a divorcee. It's really a second chance to make it great, and I wish you the best.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.